Why do people believe things that aren't true? How does misinformation impact political decision making? And to what extent, if any, can misbeliefs be corrected? In this video, we will explore these questions as we unpack the psychology of misinformation. First, some definitions. What is misinformation? Misinformation refers to false information that is spread without the intention to deceive. Staying accurately updated on politics takes time and often requires prior knowledge. Because the political world is complex, people are often motivated to look for shortcuts, referred to in psychology as heuristics. A good example of a heuristic that someone might use to help them assess new information is party affiliation. For instance, if Parliament is debating a new immigration policy, voters may rely on cues from the party to help them determine their own position on the issue. However, if a party's position on an issue is based on factual inaccuracies or claims for which there is no evidence, supporters relying on party cues may end up adopting false beliefs. Let's explain that as an example. Meet John. John is a busy person. He works, he spends time with his family and friends, he has hobbies. He doesn't always have time to read everything ever written about a particular issue, assess all perspectives, and then come to a conclusion of where he stands on that issue. So, when representatives of John's party accuse the incumbent, that is the party currently in power, of rigging the election, John believes them. In general, people tend to be more accepting of information that aligns with their existing beliefs than they are with information that contradicts or challenges those beliefs. This is because there is a mental discomfort that comes with holding two conflicting beliefs at the same time. In psychology, this is referred to as cognitive dissonance. As a result, people tend to justify, downplay, or change an inconsistent belief in order to resolve the uncomfortable feeling that it creates. Let's apply this to our earlier example. When scrolling on social media, John reads an article which refutes the claims of election fraud as misinformation. Reflecting on this new information, John has three options. Option A, he can update his beliefs, accept that his party is promoting misinformation, and change his party affiliation accordingly. Option B, he can accept that his party is promoting misinformation and continue to support them. Or option C, he can reject the new information and continue to support his preferred party. Option B will cause cognitive dissonance and mental discomfort, as John will be forced to grapple with conflicting attitudes, accepting that his party is promoting misinformation and continuing to support them regardless. Option A alleviates cognitive dissonance, but would require that John undergo a significant shift in worldview by changing his party affiliation. Option C is therefore the most likely scenario. John will reject new information that is inconsistent with his beliefs in order to avoid cognitive dissonance and maintain his party affiliation, which he feels is an integral part of his identity. In that way, John's false beliefs are solidified. Peer groups can also contribute to the solidification of false beliefs. In psychology, this is referred to as conformity bias. Generally speaking, people tend to surround themselves with peers who share their party affiliation and their ideological views. Conformity bias occurs when false beliefs are reinforced through group interaction. John belongs to many social media groups related to his party. He frequently encounters posts online which reinforce his beliefs that the election was rigged by the incumbent. Most of John's friends and family share this belief, which reassures John that there is validity in the claim. Social media plays a significant role in conformity bias because social media algorithms are programmed to learn about a user's interests and then recommend similar content to keep them engaged longer. This can create echo chambers that reinforce existing views and reduce opportunities for beliefs to be challenged. In other words, the more that John engages with content on election fraud, the more content on election fraud he sees. These social media algorithms create curated information experiences, where the diversity of perspectives are not always shown. This further convinces John that his false beliefs are true. An alternate school of thought is that misperceptions are not always genuine. Rather, the so-called misinformed pretend to hold false beliefs as a way of demonstrating their political view or preference. In psychology, this is referred to as expressive responding. Meet Jill. Jill is very loyal to her party. She considers herself to be a politically active person. She knows where her party stands on various political and social issues, and she feels that her interests align with their positions. Jill knows that sometimes her party bends the truth, but she knows they do this to achieve their political goals that she is also personally invested in. So, when Jill's party accuses the incumbent of rigging the election, she knows their goal is to weaken support for the incumbent. Jill believes that life would be better if her preferred party were in power. She shares posts online claiming to have witnessed election fraud. She attends rallies to protest the rigging of the election. Why does Jill do this? Why does she spread information she knows is false? Recall, Jill understands that the party's disinformation campaign is connected to a larger political goal, winning the election. As such, she derives psychological benefits from supporting her party's position. Regardless of whether false beliefs are genuine or expressive, there remains a concern that citizens who base their policy preferences on false information send distorted signals to policymakers, effectively undermining the system of representative democracy. Correcting misbeliefs may result in different signals, perhaps those that more accurately represent the citizens' preferences. Expressive responding challenges this concept, as the individual is already aware of the facts. However, since the facts do not align with their political preferences, they pretend to adopt false information in order to maintain preference consistency. As such, confronting these individuals with the truth is unlikely to produce a different outcome. The question then turns to the true misinformed. Could their misbeliefs be corrected? And if so, might this lead to more informed political decision-making? Research has indicated that people are much more likely to update false beliefs if the information being corrected is not perceived to be integral to one's political identity. For instance, an experiment by Kolinsky et al. Found that people who believed the U.S. federal government was allocating too much money to welfare altered their policy views in support of welfare when they were told the true allocation was actually less than their preferred amount. These findings suggest that certain misbeliefs are receptive to correction. However, other strains of misinformation, particularly those that are more integral to political identity or connected to an ideological position, may be more difficult to correct, as the individual has a stronger emotional connection to them. Thus, in deciding whether to accept or reject information that challenges or tries to correct such misbeliefs, people are more likely to come to a conclusion that supports their existing political views. In psychology, this is referred to as motivated reasoning. If false beliefs are, in some cases, expressions of political identity, perhaps the signals that misinformed citizens send to policymakers are actually true, rather than distorted versions of one's political preference. In that way, is the correction of misinformation even a worthy endeavor? False beliefs don't only have policy-related consequences. Misinformation that circulated during the COVID-19 pandemic, questioning the efficacy of vaccines or even the reality of the virus, presented a significant threat to public health. Meanwhile, misinformation about election fraud in the U.S. resulted in an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. The goal of correcting misinformation is not to influence shifts in party affiliation. Rather, it is to help reduce the degree of dangerous behavior that derives from false beliefs. For that reason, efforts to correct misbeliefs remain in the public's interest.